Working sucks, and it sucks even more if you've been at the same job for years and you haven't seen any significant progress. But did you know that you can become a millionaire just by going to work? All you have to do is change the way you allocate where your money goes. Now, when I first started working, I didn't earn that much, but what I did with my money made a big difference. And doing these things helped me get to where I am today, financially free and able to travel the world without needing a 9-to-5 job. So in today's video, I'm going to share exactly what I did with each paycheck to grow my wealth and what you can do today to start growing yours. But first, let me give you a little bit of my backstory. When I first started making real money, I was interning as an engineer working on satellites for the government. At the time, I was getting paid a pretty decent amount, around $28 an hour. And I was also able to make more by working night shifts and overtime. And since I was still in college, my expenses were pretty fixed. I had to save enough every month to pay for my tuition, rent, and food, and needed a little bit more to go out and have fun with my friends. Now, the amount I was making was enough to cover these expenses. And I figured that I could just keep doing this for the rest of my life. Just go to work and spend money on things that I need. But after talking to my coworkers, many of whom were 30 years older than me, I realized that I needed to think differently and I needed to change my spending habits, because I realized that for many of them, they fell into that same trap of spending exactly what they were making and realizing years down the road that they couldn't actually afford to buy any big things that really make a difference to their lives, like buying a home near work. And the company also changed a lot of their policies over the years, so they don't take care of their employees as well as they used to. You see, back in the day, the company used to give employees a lot of benefits, like Christmas bonuses or turkeys during Thanksgiving, and they even gave them a pension when they retired, which means that they would still get a large portion of their paycheck for the rest of their lives, even after they retired. By the time I got in, most of those programs were gone. So as an employee, we were left to fend for ourselves. Now, around the same time, I also saw some of my coworkers who were fiercely loyal to the company get laid off, and super productive team members get minimal raises. So from all this, I learned that if you want to be successful, then you need to be the one to take control of your own finances, and you need to do whatever it takes to become a millionaire. And to take control of your finances, you need to start planning for the future right away. So the first thing you want to do is open your retirement account. So the first place that I put my paycheck is towards my retirement account. So here's the thing, even though companies usually don't offer pensions anymore, they usually do offer 401k plans. Now, when you get paid, the first place that you need to put your money is into these tax-advantaged retirement plans, especially if your company matches your contribution. So the cool thing about a 401k is that you can invest more of your money into it than a regular retirement account. And the company will usually match a percentage of what you put in. So for example, at the company that I work for, if I put in 8% of my base salary into my 401k, the company would match 6% of my base salary. So as an example, let's say I made $100,000 this year, and I put in 8% of what I make, which is $8,000, into my 401k. And the company would add an additional $6,000. So at the very minimum, I always make sure to maximize the contribution, because that's basically free money that they're giving you. Like, these guys are giving me a guaranteed 75% return on my money just for putting money into this account. So you'd be pretty foolish not to take full advantage of that. Now, this is when I started learning about the long-term benefits of investing. So my coworkers, who were around 50 years old at the time, told me that they wish they all started sooner, because when they were younger, they always thought, oh, I'm only 20 years old, I'll retire at 65, I'll start putting in money into my retirement accounts when I make more money, when I'm closer to retirement. But then as the years went by, they never invested in their retirement accounts because they never ended up having that extra money that they hoped. And as they got more raises, their expenses also increased, and saving never got easier. And as they got closer to retirement age, they finally started investing and realized how much they missed out on. So let me show you an example of why investing early makes the biggest difference. Let's say there are two friends. You have Richard and Portrait, who both start their jobs at the age of 22 and work until they're 65 years old. Give them each 43 years to invest. Now, these guys are equally smart, and I said they get paid the same and get promoted at the same time. But the only difference is that Richard starts to invest right when he gets his first job. And he decides that he's only gonna contribute for 10 years and then stop investing and let the fund grow by itself. Whereas Portrait thinks that investing is for old people and decides to put off investing for the first 10 years, but then continuously invest until he retires. So if they both plan on investing $1,000 a month, that means that the first guy, Richard, only needs to contribute $120,000 because that's $1,000 a month for 10 years. Whereas Portrait ends up contributing $396,000 because he's investing $1,000 a month for 33 years. So Portrait is putting in over 3 times the amount that Richard is putting in. So the question is, who do you think is going to have more money in their account by the time they're 65 years old? And very surprisingly, Richard actually comes out on top with $4.641 million, whereas Portrait only ends up with $2.787 million. And in fact, Portrait will never be able to catch up to Richard if he only contributes $1,000 a month, because Richard makes more money from his compound interest than Portrait does from his compound interest plus his monthly contribution combined. So it's really interesting to see how the rich can get richer. Now the whole point of the story is just to start early. But the main difference between investing in a retirement account and a regular taxable account is the huge downside of that you have to pay taxes. Taxes can eat away at your gains. And every time you sell a stock and buy a new one, or you cash out your stocks to buy something else, you're gonna get taxed on your gains. But in a retirement account, investing is much better because you can buy and sell investments within the account tax-free, and depending on the type of retirement account you have, either the money you put in is tax deductible or it's tax-free when you take it all out, depending if you're going with the traditional version of the accounts or a Roth version of the accounts. So for me, I did my best to invest as much money as I could every single year into my retirement account. But the 401k does have one huge downside, and it's that you cannot invest in whatever you want within a 401k. You're gonna be limited to investing in the funds the company provides for you. Now this is good for about 95% of the workforce because you're gonna be restricted into buying safe investments instead of risking your retirement on risky things like cryptocurrencies or speculative real estate deals. But it's actually bad for the other 5% who wanna maximize their opportunities. Now because I was a little bit more advanced and I liked investing in my own stocks and want more flexibility, I also opened up a Roth IRA. Now an IRA is also a retirement account but lets you invest more money that's separate from your 401k from your company. Now personally, I love the Roth version of both the 401k and IRA because even though I do pay taxes up front to fund these accounts, when I eventually pull my money out when I'm retired and I'm way older, all that money is gonna be tax-free. Now the contribution limit for an IRA is much lower than for a 401k. So as of this recording, you can invest around $23,000 into a 401k, but only $7,000 a year in a Roth IRA. So the ideal situation is to max out both your Roth IRA and your 401k every year. That way you're investing $30,000 a year into these tax advantage accounts that grow and compound over time. Now, of course, my entire paycheck didn't go into funding my retirement accounts. I also need to pay for my everyday expenses, which leads me to the next place I spend my paycheck, and that's to my checking account. But not everything in your checking account should be spent. So before you get into that, you want to budget your ideal lifestyle. Now, when I was just starting out, I didn't have a ton of money. So I was really mindful of all my expenses, like my rent, my tuition, my food, and going out with my friends. And so I started making a budget. Now I recorded every single thing I spent so I could keep track of it. Now writing down my expenses made me very conscious of my spending. And I knew that if I had to write down these big purchases that I knew weren't that great for me, it really made me think twice about buying something that wasn't really important. And another mind hack that I did that prevented me from buying random things was that I started changing my perspective from thinking something cost X dollars into seeing how much time it took me to make that money from my job. Then I would think if it was really worth all those hours of sitting at my desk, bored, away from my friends, just for this one random thing. And by planning ahead and keeping to a strict budget, you'll be able to save way more and eventually do things like hit your long-term goals, such as buying a house or paying for an early retirement. And it becomes this fun activity that motivates you into saving and investing even more. But that's assuming everything goes as planned. Now, what if something unexpected happens? And that's why you need an emergency fund. Now, the thing with having money in a Roth IRA and 401k is that it's basically locked up. Getting money out of a retirement account can be a long process, and there's going to be penalties and tax implications if you withdraw the money too early. So I didn't want to touch those accounts at all. In fact, I didn't even think they existed. What I wanted to do though was make sure I did have a buffer of reserves just in case something happened with me or my job. See, right when I graduated from UCLA, I was expecting a full-time offer from the company that I worked out with a promotion and a huge raise. But instead, the business was going terribly for them and they were doing mass layoffs. So they told me, Sean, we can't offer you promotion in the middle of these mass layoffs. We can only offer you this much. And on top of that, this company didn't give you regular hours to work with. You had to be on certain projects and can only be assigned a certain charge number for hours for each role. So if there was no work available, then you didn't get paid. And for several weeks, they kept telling me to check back in 2 weeks, see if there's any new work available. And this went on for 6 weeks where I had no job, no new money coming in. Now, not gonna lie, this was a pretty rough time for me, but I did have an emergency fund and I was able to get through all this, and this whole incident didn't impact me much long term. Thank goodness I had this buffer because otherwise I'd have to go take a personal loan, which means I'd pay more money for all this stuff because of the interest on top of it. Now, ideally, you want to have enough money in your emergency fund to cover 6 months of your expenses. So if your rent, utilities, and food averages out to about $3,000 a month, then you should have $18,000 in an emergency fund. But don't just keep this money under your mattress or in a regular checking account. Since this money is going to be sitting there and you want it to be in cash, you should put it into a high yield savings account. So these are savings accounts that are also FDIC insured and provide a great interest rate. So right now you're giving you around 4 to 5% a year. And if you guys are interested in opening your own high yield savings account, check out the link down below for my favorite one. Now, once you have your emergency fund set up and you're contributing to your retirement accounts, the next thing you want to tackle is your high interest debt. Most people have some sort of debt, like credit card debt, car loans, student loans, or mortgages. And the thing about debt is that you can decide to just make the minimum payments or do more to pay them off earlier. Now, I highly recommend putting any extra money you have into paying off any loans that are above 8%, because if you don't, your total payments are going to be much more than what you initially borrowed. And if you try to invest the difference instead, then you're going to need to have an investment that not only doesn't lose you money, but needs to grow more than 8% for it to be worth it. But if you're paying down your high interest debt, then you're guaranteed to save on that money and that interest. Now, there's two methodologies to paying off debt. One is called the avalanche method, which has you paying off the debt with the highest interest first. So this is going to save you more money in the long run, but may also make you feel discouraged since you're not going to see as much progress, since you're going to be working off paying probably this one large loan with a high interest rate for a very long time. Now, the other method is called the snowball method, where you focus on paying off the debt with the lowest balances first. This is less money efficient, but it gives better psychological results, because instead of having to worry about 10 loans, you're going to start seeing the amount of bills start to drop until you only have your largest one left. But once you start paying off your debt and you won't have these monthly dues, you're going to feel lighter and better, and it opens up some more opportunities for you. And this is where things get really interesting. Now, after paying off your high interest debt, the next step is to start investing all of your extra money into a taxable account. So let me explain. When you invest in a taxable account, you're still investing in stocks and doing similar things that what you're already doing with your retirement accounts, except now you can invest in basically whatever you want. And you can invest as much as you like and take the money out whenever you want. But the downside is you are taxed when you sell stocks for a profit, and there are no special tax advantages here. But once you get to this point, the opportunities are endless, because besides investing in the stock market, you can start investing in other things like real estate, other businesses, or other side hustles. So I know there's a lot, but I think what you should do right now is automate this process by telling your HR representative how you want to separate your paycheck, so that a piece automatically gets vested into your retirement account, a piece gets put into your emergency fund, and the rest goes into your checking account and taxable investing account. And of course, pay off your debt if you have high interest debt. If you have a mortgage under 7%, it's okay not to pay that off ASAP. Now, in general, I recommend mentally budgeting at least 20% of your gross paycheck into either savings, investing, or paying off your debt, and just learn to live off the remaining 80% of your income. Because if you can save at least 20% of your paycheck, then over time, you will be successful and you will eventually hit financial freedom. And if you think you can't do it, you're stretched too thin, just remember that there are millions of people out there who make 20% less than you do, and they're able to survive as well. So you definitely got this. Now, if you got this far, you definitely want to check out this video over here, where I show you the secret that lets you never have to work again. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next time. Take care.